Hi, and welcome to today's episode of Women's Health Unwrapped. I'm so delighted that you've chosen to have me in your ears again today. If you're a new listener, thanks for choosing this podcast. I know there's a lot of choice out there. So welcome to the episode. Now, I'm going to be talking all about midlife and those choices, those beliefs that we often hold as women, because it's easy to think that hitting midlife means you're old and past most things. Because let's face it, I think most of us, or many of us at least, were told this from our mothers or other female role models as we were growing up. Except the world, thankfully, is changing. Being a menopausal midlife woman does not mean that you have to retreat and take your place as an old woman. Far from it, in fact. And today's guest is going to help us know why midlife provides an incredible opportunity to create a life that is a life you've designed to be exactly how you want it to be. I'm joined by Staci Berkovitz, who decided as she was about to turn 50 that it was time to embrace the messiness of midlife with all your nakedness. So if you're wondering how to do this and what it all means, being naked, then keep listening as Staci unwraps that. So welcome to the podcast, Staci.
So much for having me.
You're welcome. I'm really looking forward to chatting about this because just the highlight of the topic itself, I think, is very intriguing and something that I think many midlife women might go, oh God, nakedness, no, thank you. I will stay far away from that. But just to kick us off, I'd love to know from you what your most impactful healthy habit is at the moment.
Yeah, my most impactful healthy habit at the moment is prioritizing sleep. It's the thing I've always struggled with the most. So it's saying no to things that are going to disrupt my sleep. That's where I'm at. Mm-hmm.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, I've had a couple of guests say sleep, and I love we get a lot of diversity in what they do share as their most impactful habit. Like say sleep's come up a couple of times. What would be an example of something that you do say no to that means you are prioritizing better sleep?
Well, I can tell you what I'm saying no to, and then I can tell you what I'm going to say no to, because I this is actually one of my goals that I just thought about 2 nights ago. So I'm saying no to anything that I feel like will rob me of my sleep. So that means late night parties. It means foods that I'm choosing to eat. You want to make sure that you choose foods that help you sleep a little better. Protein is a good thing to eat, a light protein, something. But the thing I'm saying, okay, moving forward in 2025 is not touching my phone 30 minutes before bedtime. I have
Yeah.
noticed here's been my lesson. Can I tell you my lesson this week? It's been an expensive one. So I don't know about you in the UK. Y'all have Amazon in the UK, right?
We do.
Okay. All right. So, what happens between Amazon and Facebook late at night is I'll either be scrolling and looking at Facebook, and then I'll do like this deep dive into a stranger's life that's a Facebook friend, not a stranger, but somebody I haven't talked to for a few years. And I'll be like, I wonder what they're up to. And then I end up going back to like 2009 when they ate a bagel, and I'm like, how did I get here? And it's 1 o'clock in the morning. So, that's the first thing. And the second thing is I bought something on a Facebook ad that I thought would be this great idea for Christmas gifts and giveaways because I'm doing my book launch next week. And it was this big box of like Amazon send backs, right? Things that didn't do well on Amazon. So you could get like a small box, a medium box, or a big box for like $60. And I was like, oh yeah. So, it was probably 11:30 or 12 at night. And I bought this big box. And it came with two tiny things in it, not a big box, a tiny box. So right now I'm having to try to get my money back from a company that probably isn't legit. But so I said, this is my lesson. This is my reminder that instead of scrolling late at night, which is proving to be costly, I am going to take a step back at least 30 minutes before bedtime. And I've tried this several times, but I feel a little more determined now to really make this
Oh, I love that. And that is such a common thing for many women, isn't it? To end up in bed with their phone and spend goodness knows how many hours actually scrolling on social media rather than sleeping. And yet that pattern's repeated every night and they want to change it but can't change it because, of course, as they say, your phone is more addictive than crack cocaine, and so you're on there every night. So we could do a whole podcast episode on that. That's such an interesting and very relevant topic for lots of people. But yeah, thanks for sharing that, because that's really life, isn't it? Like, we still have to change things in our life. There are things I'm always looking to improve and habits I'm focusing on trying to build. And we're like anyone else, there's still stuff we want to do to improve our health, because there is no finish line when it comes to health, which, isn't something to mean, oh, it's impossible, but actually something to incentivize you that you just keep progressing and getting those ripple effects and making things even better. So
Ooh,
let's dive into
wait.
all things. Go on.
I just want to add one quick thing to this because it's so relevant right now. Sorry. Outside of Amazon and lots of scrolling, I told you really quickly before we were talking, before we started recording, that I'm having surgery December 18th. And when you go to surgery, they always give you post-op, like, don't take a bath for a few days while you're stitching, all the things, right? Whatever surgery you're having, there's always some type of post-operation standards they want you to follow. Well, what we don't think about is pre-op. And when you're talking about these continual choices of health, it's living in the best pre-op mode you can. So that means sleeping, staying hydrated, eating nutritious food, so that if it's whether a planned surgery or one that is last minute, your body is ready for whatever's happening to it.
Yeah. And that is like so appropriate, because what I talk about a lot is that many people, this isn't just, for women, many people hold off on making positive changes to their health, even though they know they want to feel differently. And you do have some people who genuinely don't think about it and don't really care. But then something goes wrong. They're diagnosed with a disease or a chronic illness, or they just are not well, or maybe it's a family member, they lose a family member, or they've been diagnosed with something. And then they realise, now I have to do something about it. And in those kind of situations, it's much harder to begin making positive changes and forming those new habits. You can still do it, but it is tougher when you are already sick or unwell or struggling, with some kind of news or change in your family. And so the sooner you can be proactive about it, and as you say, it's not coming at it from a negative standpoint of, oh, I've got to be prepared for something going wrong. It's like, no, if I can be the best, strongest, most well version of myself, then it doesn't matter what comes along. I'm resilient. And this isn't about just health crisis. It's, life is going to throw hurdles and obstacles at us, isn't it? So yeah, living in that state will help you in so many ways, rather than waiting for something to go wrong.
Yeah, agreed. Totally agreed.
Yeah. So let's dive into midlife and its messiness and nakedness as well. I'd love, to know from you, what do you mean by embracing midlife with all your nakedness? Let's go right in, literally at the deep end.
I love it. Let's jump.
Yes.
So let's just jump. So it's so interesting because I feel like when I started thinking at 49, when I started thinking about the big 50, it really frightened me. Like, I thought, oh my gosh, weren't the Golden Girls 50? You have the Golden Girls. Yeah. I was like, wasn't Blanche 50? And oh my goodness. And how in the world is that? That doesn't feel where I'm at. That doesn't look how I look. Like, I don't understand. And I was really dreading it. And then I thought about my mom, who was 52 when she passed away from a very, very fast cancer. And I thought, no, it's a privilege to be alive. And what can I do to really make 50 mean something? And so that's when I decided to do 50 new experiences. As I was doing these experiences and podcasting about them on my own podcast, I started thinking this should be a book, because women in this age range, I know I'm not alone in feeling this, like this, oh my gosh, like 50 almost feels like a door as opposed to a window. And so changing that mindset to being open, vulnerable, messy, ready, explore that exploratory mindset, naked like a baby who comes into this world fresh for new beginnings. That's what Naked at 50 was. What I didn't plan as one of my 50 experiences, which ended up happening, was going to a nudist resort. And so that literally I became naked at 50. But so it means a lot of things to me now.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. I think we might need to know more, maybe off recording, about the naked experience. So yeah, I think you've explained that really well. In fact, we come into this world, like you say, as naked as the day you're born. That's the saying, isn't it? And at that point, we have all of the confidence. You see toddlers as they start learning to walk and growing, things that they try, they fail at, they're all confident in their own right because they haven't yet started to really take on the weight of the world as we do throughout, our adolescence and then into adulthood, when then our confidence, our self-belief, our self-esteem start to shift. And not everyone shifts negatively, but many women do struggle with those kinds of things. And yet we were all born equal, really, like you're saying. So I love that analogy of being naked, in that sense of being vulnerable. But as I started with in the introduction, that's a real challenge for many women who are reaching or are at midlife and see it as something that means, they're changing in a negative way. And like, were you ever in that place? I know you said you kind of thought, oh, 50, this is getting older, but were you someone who did have those beliefs that midlife meant being on the slippery slope into old age?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think when you're not there, it's like anything else. When you hear about something, you have your perceptions of it. But when you're experiencing it, it becomes real. And so I think my perceptions of what it was going to be are so different. I mean, I'm in great shape. I've taught fitness for 13 and a half years. I'm healthy. My mindset is in a great place. I have tools now to help me shift from stress that I didn't have when I was 40. So definitely I had the fear of it, but the realization post the perception of it is so much better.
What would you
That
say
that
is better? Yeah.
That doesn't mean my back doesn't hurt sometimes. I mean, let's be real. Sometimes things hurt, but like overall, it's good. It's good.
Mm.
I feel like when we have this, we put these scripts on things that we feel like we need to follow. And when we release a script, we can really be in the moment of what the play is about.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And so you focus a lot on stress in the coaching that you provide. And you mentioned you have a lot of tools now to be more resilient and manage stress better than you did at 40. How do you support people to manage that themselves? Because life is stressful for many women, but then midlife and the changes we go through as we navigate all things menopause can bring a lot of stress that can really pull you down, can't it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. I would say one thing that I always try to share with anybody, and it doesn't matter if they want to reduce stress or better eating habits or manage menopause, whatever it is the very, very, very first step to change is always awareness. It's just awareness. And I think so many people are walking around unaware. And we all have moments of unawareness, but when we clue into what is the feedback our body is giving us, what do we feel after we're with a certain person? What do we feel after a certain experience? How do we feel after eating certain foods? What is our stomach
Mm.
telling us? What is our body telling us? When we're stressed, when we have a conversation, where is stress showing up in our bodies? And is that about the conversation or is that the perception of what the conversation is going to bring? So I think it's awareness is like the first step to any type of change in life. So that's something I don't think I had at 40, which I have now.
Yeah, I
And
agree. That comes through from so many guests, and I'll ask at the end for you to give us 3 simple steps someone can take. to improve their midlife experience in next chapter. But that awareness, especially recently, has been coming through so much, because you're right. If we aren't self-aware, first of all, of what we want, but then what's holding us back from getting that, that's a real, obstacle, isn't it, in being able to build new habits and create lasting positive change.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's key. So that's a huge thing. And then I think mindset is so important. And it's such a phrase now that's kind of thrown around, especially post pandemic. Like, check your mindset. But what does that truly mean? It means that you can be in your living room, or you can be and be miserable. You can be standing at the most beautiful view of mountains and water and be miserable. Or you can be sitting in your living room and be at peace or be happy. And you can be at the most beautiful place and be happy. So when you start realizing how you feel as an internal thing, it's not an external thing, and we're in charge of that feeling, it becomes empowering, because these external sources become quieter when your internal ones become louder.
Mm. And that mindset piece, in the context of what we're talking about today for midlife and embracing the messiness, that is absolutely essential, isn't it? So how does someone listening begin to think about their own mindset, who maybe are in their 40s or even already in their 50s, but, who are thinking of where they are in life and what's still to be lived? How can you create that mindset that embraces that nakedness and the messiness?
Yeah. So, of course, the awareness piece is huge. That's the biggest piece. And then it's like, what helps you shift? What helps you shift? So, okay, first of all, back to the messy. We're all going to be messy, even with all the tools. I'm sure even the Dalai Lama has a bad day sometimes. So, like, there's no perfection. We're not going to achieve this in this life. But we can definitely improve. We can improve how we feel. So, it's awareness, it's choosing to be responsible of how we feel. And then it's finding those things that help shift us when we're stuck, when we're feeling frustrated, or in that, I don't know if this is ever you, where you go down and
Mm.
have a thought and you just can't get out of it, like my late night Facebook when I discovered the bagel day in 2009, like that spiral, right? So it's, what are the things that you can do to shift you? And so for me, the things that help me personally are, I do affirmations every morning. I journal and I write what I'm grateful for. I write affirmations, things I want to manifest in my life. And I say them like they're already have happened or that they're currently happening. I pray for people. So that is a very good way to start the day for me. I noticed a difference. I do it almost every morning and have for for 3 years, 2 years, 3 years, something like that. And so at this point, it's become a part of my routine. I notice when I get really stressed, I go to the kitchen. And so sometimes I mindlessly eat. So to take a step back from that, I go for a walk. And doesn't mean that I sometimes don't grab a handful of chocolate. I still have my days, but it does make me aware of like, oh, my body's sending messages. I leave my phone at home and I just take a walk around the block to try to recenter. Movement
Mm.
for me is so important for my mental well-being. I talk to people who have an energy I call an elevator energy. I feel elevated after speaking to them. I try to honor their space. And so if I'm having a hard time, I try to ask, is this a good time for me to share this? And so if it is, that can help shift me having those conversations. I find things I can laugh about. So whether it's with friends or with something I read or whatever it is, that is a shifter. So a lot of it is like a somatic technique, which is like in your body technique, is like a co-regulation hug, or you can do a self-regulation hug where you just hold yourself and breathe. Breathing techniques help. I do a lot of breath work when I'm feeling stressed. So there's lots of little tools. The magic though is finding what works for you, because if it's a tool, it's like any tool, you're not, unless you need it, right? Like it's, unless it works for what you need, it's just a tool. So it's
Mhm.
experimenting and finding what helps your mindset shift. Do you have any that you like when you get in that funky funk that you lean on?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm in that funky place, definitely getting outside for a walk. I totally agree with moving your body. Even going in, I've got a little gym at home, just going into there and lifting some weights. I find weights, and I don't do really heavy weights. I've had a back problem as well and been recovering from that for some time. It's thankfully a lot better. But I've, had to progress again slowly. But just moving weights for me brings me really present, so that you aren't thinking about whatever it was that was pulling you down that spiral into the dark place. That you're thinking about what you're doing, how it feels, the effort that it requires, reaching that number of reps. So, moving body, definitely. For me, I do a lot of mindset stuff to fill my mind with the kind of fuel I want it to have externally from an environmental point of view. So this are things like podcasts, who was on my social media feed, even like you said, reading affirmations or some other piece of positivity that I've maybe saved in an album for moments like that. So realizing, I feel like that and thinking, I need a bit of Mel Robbins, for example. She's, I think a really super juicy motivator. Get her in my ears and lift that up. Music as well. I like music, sometimes more of the relaxing music. And definitely being an entrepreneur, I've found sharing things with people. I've got thankfully, a few different small groups and communities where I feel very safe and supported to be able to say, I'm really struggling with this. Say that if the thing that's got me in a funk is a work related thing, that I can share with those. So yeah, you're right. And I talk about having a toolkit with lots of tools, and many of those tools will be habits that are part of your daily lifestyle, but then you will have others that are tools to pull out in that moment when you need them, or they're a habit you've got, but you're going to maybe dial it up a little bit because of how you're feeling right now. So yeah, it's definitely, I think in general life, about having those habits that come from all of those different tools. And I think then beyond that, when we talk about mindset, especially when we're thinking about midlife and how some women might be approaching it from that mindset perspective, I think having that bigger vision about what your life means and where you're going, and that's quite deep. But like you said, when you were approaching 50 and you're thinking, God, how have I got here? Like 50 seemed old when I was 20 and 30. Now I'm approaching it. Shit, what does that mean? But then knowing what age your mum was when she sadly passed away brings that perspective. And sometimes I think we all need a little bit of that to rationalize, because it's easy to be caught up in just the doing and the want of life as well. Well, I want this, I want to be thinner, I want to be fit, I want more money, I want to be going on these holidays. And if you haven't got that stuff, you equate that to not being happy. And so I think we have to work at what helps us to be happy and accepting of who we are and how our life is. Does that make sense with you?
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. Hmm.
Mm,
I love that. If I can just take a step back to what you were saying about music and podcast, and I think we need to be, goes back to that awareness piece of what we're letting in. What are
yeah.
we letting in? What are we seeing? What are we tasting? What are we hearing? What are we letting in? Because that is what is penetrating us, both our brains and our cells. What are we letting into our body? And then being in charge of the energy that's going to produce. Like, we
Mm-hmm.
make decisions. So whether we're approaching 50 or 40 or 60 or whatever, it's going, what's the energy that I want to create in my body? And choosing sources that you're going to allow in and people you're going to allow in that honor the life you want to create.
Yeah, 100%. And I talk about this in terms of fueling your mind and body. And lots of women focus on the food they eat, think about diets, the whole diet culture thing. Many women, around 75% of women, are still stuck in diet culture, is they hit that midlife age range. And you have to get really intentional, as you said, about it's not just the food that you eat that makes you feel how you feel. It's everything. And yet we think of it quite one-dimensional in that way. When we think about fuel, we just think about the stuff we're putting in our mouth. But it's not. It's everything. It's your relationships, what's in your bank account, the job you do, the way you think about all of that stuff. The whole life you live externally in your total environment and what that's putting in to you is what equates the way that you work, isn't it? And so taking stock of that, I think the midlife crossroads, almost if we think of it in that way, brings such a big opportunity to pause and reflect on all of that, because we've never been taught to think about what's going in and what it's doing in our head, in our body, beyond just calories and what we look like, have we?
No, no, no. Holistically,
Mm-hmm.
the concept of holistically seeing our health, I feel like some people were way ahead of their curve and like talking about that. But for the most part, you're right. It was like, what does my body look like in a swimsuit? Right. Like it was so much, and we're just so much more than that. That just the whole holistic thing of like who we are on the inside, literally, and what we're listening to and what we're eating and what
Mm-hmm.
we're seeing and who we're being around, like all of that energy affects all of us. And when you think about like the obsession we have with the bikini look, it's just like, oh my gosh, it's almost laughable now how irrelevant that is to our actual well-being.
I know you went through a health transformation quite some time ago, but do you feel as though you've kind of had a new evolution of that transformation hitting this 50 milestone, about how irrelevant so much of what would have been relevant to you at a younger age like actually means now?
Yeah, and I think in some ways, and this is my opinion, I think in some ways it depends if you're single or in a relationship or like slash
Mm.
married. I'm single. And so if you're single and wanting a relationship, searching for some type of companionship, I think you almost are thinking about, do I look? How do I look? Right. That doesn't mean if you're married, you're like, screw it. I'll just, I don't ever have to brush my hair again. But it's just a different thing, because if you're in a healthy marriage, you feel this acceptance from your partner, right? Like if you're not, you wake up or you have some white hair, whatever, you just know like you're growing together. But I think when you're single, it's just, it's different. So I wouldn't say being 50, I'm like, screw it. I'll just, I don't need to
Mm.
do anything anymore. What I will say is, and this is, I'm postmenopausal now. And I would say being postmenopausal, it does something to this, like, I think it's a gift that we don't talk about enough of being like, F it. Like things that really I would spend my energy on earlier in life. It's like an energy and like, things that are not going to provide a good tomorrow, things I would
Mm.
worry about too long. Now there's still things that come up. I'm like, oh, that's still there. That's interesting. But part of the hormonal journey as a woman, and I know this is like your specialty, but like part of that journey is something on the other side of being postmenopausal, is this wisdom that you're like, oh wow, that's kind of badass. I didn't know that was going to be a gift. I thought it was just the night sweats early on during perimenopause. That was my gift. No, but the wisdom is so, you feel it, like I just feel it, and you see
Mm.
things, and I'm more grateful for things, and I appreciate time with people more. And this is also because of the work I've done. Like this isn't just because
Yeah.
I had a 50th birthday and I woke up, I'm like, I am wise. This is a combination of hormones changing and my own work. But I definitely feel that. The other thing that's so interesting, and I don't know if you're on HRT or you talk a lot about HRT, hormone replacement therapy, but I'm on it. And I used to do like a vaginal cream. Hope I can say vaginal
Yeah.
on your podcast. Okay. But I used to do the vaginal cream, but now, like for the past maybe 8 months, I do a transdermal patch, and you can either put
Mhm.
it on your behind or your stomach, and it's an estradiol, so it replaces the estrogen you've lost. And then I take a progesterone pill. So that's what I take for my HRT. And I have had such an aha moment with this little sticker that sometimes gets stuck on my clothing, which isn't pleasant, but it's what we're putting on our bodies, like our skin, the lotions we're grabbing. Like transdermally, I'm getting my estrogen from a sticker. So like, imagine what you're doing when you're putting on all these chemically created lotions and whatever. So that alone, just with skin, see what's seeping in. And then from all the external sources in your life, what you're allowing to let seep into you. So it's just this awareness of like, I don't want that around me anymore. And that's been one of the other gifts of 50, is being able to just be like, no, in my wise woman on the mountain stage of life, I don't need it. I don't need that in my life anymore. So yeah.
That's pretty empowering, isn't it? And I think one of the things, for someone listening to think about as well, is just by the choice you've made to listen to this podcast, is that you're interested in bettering your life and how you feel. And hopefully you're being inspired by Staci and her story and myself. But there are so many women out there, and now all of these communities you can become a part of and belong in, that are really empowering one another in so many incredible ways. And as we said, this is all part of that fuel you're feeding into yourself to help you switch that mindset to be living the life that you want to live. So I'm going to switch lanes a little bit, but it's obviously still all relevant to what we're talking about, because I'd love to know about the 50 things that you decided to do to celebrate turning 50. Like, was there kind of a goal behind those 50? Was it about facing fears? Was it about just new experiences? Was it about self-development, or was it just a whole combination of things?
Yeah, it's such a good question. It was a whole combination of things. So let me just say first, the first two sections of the book, the first part is the reflective. So it's a lot of journaling for the reader to look back. The second part is looking forward. And then the 50 experiences are the third part. And so because of that, I wanted people to have their own journey with the book, to do their own self-reflection. But yes, the short answer is it was a combination. I wanted big things, I wanted small things. And because I feel like life is a combination of both. And if we're always like every day trying to jump out of an airplane, like that's not realistic either. That's not real living. I mean, it is, I guess, if you're a paratrooper, but like for the rest of us, that's not like real living. And so I really wanted it to be experiences that somebody could just try. Like one of my smaller experiences was going to I took a fencing class. And
Oh,
so yeah. And so that was like a smaller thing, right? Of course, one of my bigger one was I walked to the Camino in Spain, or going to the nudist resort. So there's different things. I've gotten asked before, like, did you have this giant list and you were just like checking it through your year? And the answer is no. I had like 12 to 15 things I kind of thought this would be kind of cool, like take a Tai Chi class, go on a hot air balloon, right? There were things I wanted to try that came to mind. But the magic is when you're open and you're like searching and looking and going with flow, experiences come to you and you're like, I've never done that before. This is going in the book, right? So there were things that came to me through the year that weren't planned at the beginning of the year.
And what was the best thing, if you can pick one
Oof,
thing that you did out of the 50?
that's
What
like
would you, I was going to say, I know this is deep, but if you were lying on your deathbed, what would be that one thing you would nod your head to going, yeah, I did that?
oh gosh. I would say there's two. So it's like you can't pick your favorite child, but I would say there's two. First was definitely walking the Camino. I had a very, for those who aren't familiar with the Camino de Santiago, it's a pilgrimage that ends at a cathedral in the northern part of Spain. That was its own. That was very special to me. So I definitely will be on my deathbed going, I did that, and look at my knees. You can tell my knees did that too. And then the other thing I would say is actually going to the nudist resort. It was really interesting. I had so many takeaways from that experience that I wasn't expecting to have as a takeaway. And it was kind of a brilliant, I used a very British word there. That was for you. A very brilliant experience. I don't say it as cute as you do, but I had a brilliant experience there. I really did. I had this like, sometimes it feels like a dream, that experience. I mean, like for some people, it feels like a night. They're thinking that would feel like a nightmare.
Yeah.
But I mean, I like think about like the first group of people I saw naked were playing pickleball, and I was like, is this real life? Like, first of all, how do you do that without a bra? And then second, like naked pickleball. Like I think about like some of these the things I saw, but it was ended up being these conversations I had with people, and it was just, yeah. I think both things I'll be like, it's like the, Rose from the Titanic.
Mm.
She was like, damn, I did that. That's kind of how both those experiences felt to me.
Oh, how fantastic. And what a point in your life to do something like that. Maybe I'll have to do that. I'm 48, so maybe I
Yes.
need to do that for my 50th. And I love how you shared as well that you didn't have that complete list of 50. It was just knowing you wanted to try 50 very different things to give lots of different perspectives and experiences and learnings to help with the book. And then they came to you and you took them up. I need to know where the nudist beach was now that you've shared more about
Oh,
that.
well, it wasn't a beach. It was in the mountains of Colorado.
Oh,
So
oh,
I live in Texas, and I was like, I
uh-huh.
am not going to a nudist resort in Texas. What if I see one of my Zumba students? So I knew I wanted to go out of state. And so it was at this beautiful resort on, I think it's like 1,500 acres or something in Colorado. So I went hiking in the buff. I mean, I had
Really?
shoes
Oh,
on.
wow. Hmm.
Yeah.
And so the whole resort was a nudist resort. It's where people go and they just spend the time that they're there nude. Yeah,
I mean, you're not walking around like, we are nude. Now what do
yeah.
we do? I mean,
I mean,
like
I've seen
there was
documentaries about it.
there's like the mountains, and there's a pool,
Hmm.
and there's like obviously the pickleball courts, and
Hmm.
there's like a game room and stuff, and it's very social. And it was really interesting because I did two nudist places that weekend in Colorado. So the first, and I didn't stay on either. I stayed at just a normal hotel where I did wear clothes, but I thought that would be a good idea. But the first one was for a day, and the second one was for a couple hours. And the one that was the day was the one I was talking about. It's called Mountain Air Resort in Colorado, and it was great. Everyone was so friendly. Everyone was naked. And then the second day, I went to this place, some hot springs place in Colorado, and it was a clothing optional resort. And if you were a man, you could only be there if you had come with a woman. So it was a
Right.
very different. So for a lot of people, that felt like the first step kind of into this. But the problem was it was clothing optional. So you had people in their bathing suits, you had people in their bottoms of their bathing suits, but not their top. And then you had just a handful of nude people. And it was like, it felt very, I don't want to say ranky, like not ranky, like smelly, but like rank, like, whereas at the first resort, everyone was naked. So it was this vulnerability and this openness, and it doesn't matter who you
Mm.
are. I met a NASA scientist there, like at the naked resort. Yeah. And a former lobbyist. And like, it's like we're all just human. So it really feels like, hey, we're all just human, versus the second resort, which it was like, oh, they're in a bathing. I don't know how to explain it. It was
Hmm.
just a very different feel for me.
Yeah. I think I know what you mean in that at the first resort, everyone was equal. You were all the same. And so the judgment had been removed because everybody was without clothes. Whereas at the second one, when you've got some people choosing to wear clothes, they maybe are judging those who are ready to go naked in different ways. And naked, I think, well, why have they got clothes on? Are they looking at, yes, you've got all of that. But just what a fabulous thing to have tried. I'm not sure it's my cup of tea, but you never know.
It wasn't
But,
mine before, but now I'm like,
would
maybe I
would you
would do
do
it
it
again.
again? Would yeah,
I think
maybe
I
again.
would. I think I would.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm not like vacation next year at Mountain Resort, like number one, but it's definitely something that I'm like, yeah, I would be open to
Uh-huh.
that. I think I would.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. So from everything that you did and experienced in that list of 50, what would be like the one aha that you would say you've taken from the whole journey?
Mm. Be open. Be open. I think whatever our mindset is, it goes back to what we're talking about with mindset, but whatever our mindset is, what we focus on grows. And
Hmm.
so I was focusing on adventure. I was focusing on new experiences. And guess what came into my life? And so I think that's what my biggest takeaway is, just like be open and focus on what you want to attract to you. And it's not really, quote, the law of attraction, although in some ways it is, but it's just like it truly is. What we focus on is where our energy goes. That's where the flow goes. So that's my biggest takeaway.
Amazing. And what a beautiful aha to have taken away from the whole thing. So to wrap us up, I'd love to get from you, you've shared lots of actionable tips really already, talking about the tools and so on. But for that person who's listening, who's thinking to herself, yeah, I'm at this kind of stage where life just feels a bit meh, not really sure what's going on, menopause, lots to juggle. I would love to feel like I'm open to creating a better, more fulfilled, happier life. What would be like 3 simple steps you'd suggest she could take to begin creating that change in her life?
Okay, yeah. I'm going to have to go back and say awareness. Like,
Yeah.
what are you aware of? What's showing up for you? What's showing up in your body? Just all of it, awareness. The second thing is finding your why. Like, why do you want this? Is it because, I mean, everyone's why is different. Is it because you want to have more energy with your grandkids or your kids? Is it because you're tired of feeling tired? Is it because whatever it is, right? You want to improve your numbers, your medical numbers, you want your cholesterol to go down, whatever it is. So it's finding your why. And then the third thing is like, look for something that is fun, that just pushes you a little bit out of your norm, because that is so good for your brain. That helps keep you young. And it's what makes life really exciting. So find something that is fun.
Fantastic. And I'll share a little personal story on that one. When we went to Vegas to get married in May of this year,
Wow.
and I've always been a scaredy cat when it comes to not just fairground rides, but like anything, even the swings at the normal playground, But anyway, I'm on this journey of self-growth and evolvement and, strength and so on. And my husband loves rides. So he said, let's go on the New York roller coaster, which, if anyone doesn't know, it wraps around the outside of a hotel on the Las Vegas Strip. So I said, yeah, okay, we'll go on it. And of course, I was petrified and really scared. And when we got to the front to board, he said, you really don't have to do this. I can go on alone. But I just knew that I wanted to do it. Although I was very scared, I did kind of know it would be fun if I could move myself, like to get on and go on that roller coaster ride. And I also thought this is all part of creating that limitless life that I want and being that strong woman. And I'm not saying I'll go on many roller coasters again. I did do a few. We went to Disneyland Paris in the summer and I did a few, but on the last day I actually said, you know what, I've had enough and I don't think I really like it. But I felt really empowered by the choice of doing it. And actually I did
Yes.
join, I ended up squealing and putting my hands in the air and just laughing, thinking, this is it, I'm on it. And so you're right, like doing something fun when for a lot of us, life isn't fun generally. I think it's really important because how we felt going back to where we started with being born naked, the fun we have as kids often is lost through the normality of life and how we are as adults. So bringing that back in midlife when we do have a lot to juggle, I think is definitely
Yes.
something we should all embrace in our messiness and nakedness. Yeah.
I love that. I just want to last comment I just want to say is at the end of every new experience, because you're talking about your roller coaster experience, I put, would I do this again? And then
Right.
tips for anyone who wants to try it. And there are some I'm like, nope, one and done. But I don't regret trying it, because I can be
Yeah.
like, that was or wasn't for me. Just like your roller coasters, that's part of living. So letting go of the attachment of what the experience has to be for you and just having fun with it, just like you did on that roller coaster.
Yeah, and what I learned through some of what I've done over this year has been that I need more fun and that I like fun and there's certain types of fun that I like and I need to bring that into my life. But again, if I didn't have that awareness, I would never have had that realization and work on making that shift so that I can be a happier person. Well, I've loved the conversation, Staci.
Me too.
Yeah, just so much fun. You're fun, and I love the concept that you created for the book. So tell everyone where, by the time this recording's out, the book will be out for people to take a look at and buy, and where they can find out more about you as well.
Yeah, I love to share. So it is on all of your major retailers. You can find it at Amazon, the place we spend too late at night on. Um, Barnes and Noble, Walmart. It's on all the channels. So and then my website is on the Exhale. If you want to see pictures of what the experiences were like, I do have an Instagram just specifically for that. It's called Naked at 50, just like the title of the book. My other Instagram is Living on the Exhale, and my business is on the Exhale. So that's
Brilliant.
where you can find me. Reach out, love to connect. So thank you so much. This has been so nice.
Yeah, it's been brilliant. And same brilliant again. It's obviously one of my words. I'll pop everything to connect with Staci and find that book Naked at 50 if you'd love to take a read and inspire yourself, whatever age you are, to maybe just have a little bit more fun, whether you're naked or not. We'll leave that to you. So thanks for your time and all of your inspiration and laughs as well, Staci. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.